Back to today's video. In today's video, I'm going to be detailing why Donald Trump has the upper hand in this election, a slight upper hand, yet still the upper hand in winning this election with using the YAMS map. Before today's video, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and like the video. And so we're looking at the 2024 electoral map with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. After taking a look at this, let's go ahead and start by filling out some of the safe, likely, and lean states for either candidate. So we're going to go ahead and give Kamala Harris the states of Washington, Oregon, and California. Donald Trump, the states of Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, North and South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Iowa, Missouri, South Carolina, West Virginia, Nebraska's at-large vote, Nebraska's first congressional district, and also we're going to go ahead and give Donald Trump the states of Texas, Florida, and Alaska in the likely margins. Kamala Harris will win the state of Colorado in the likely margin, the state of New Mexico in the likely margin. Donald Trump will win the state of Utah in the safe margin. And we're going to go ahead and give Kamala Harris the states of Vermont, Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, D.C., Rhode Island, and Massachusetts in the safe column. So now with that being said, we have Donald Trump at 201 electoral votes, Kamala Harris at 130. We're going to give Kamala Harris the state of Illinois in the safe margin. Donald Trump will win the state of Ohio in the likely margin, as well as giving Kamala Harris the state of New York in the likely margin, as well as the state of New Jersey. The state of New Hampshire will vote for Kamala Harris most likely in the lean to tilt margin, so in that lean to tilt margin category. Nebraska's first congressional district will vote for Kamala Harris, as well as Nebraska's second congressional district voting for Donald Trump in the safe margin. Moving on from there, let's go ahead and give Donald Trump here Kamala Harris rather, the states of Minnesota in the lead margin and the state of Virginia. I'm going to go ahead and put this state here in the tilt margin for now, lean margin for now. It might switch over to the tilt margin in a couple of videos, potentially in a couple of weeks. We only have about 3 weeks or 4 weeks till the election, so this state could definitely flip over to the tilt margin for the Democrats. Moving on from there, the state of Hawaii, obviously going to the Democrats in the safe margin, going back to our 2020 presidential election results. You can see that Joe Biden won in the state of Hawaii by around 30 percentage points, so it's definitely going to vote for Kamala Harris in the safe margin. Now, just to be very clear before we continue today's video, a safe margin for me, it is obviously different for every individual in terms of what they make the safe, likely, and lean margins. But just to be clear, anything 10% or greater is safe. Anything from 5% to 9.9% is in the likely margin. Anything from 2% to 4.9% is in the lean margin. And anything from 0.1% all the way to 1.9%, it will be in the tilt margin, or tilt margin. And then 0% is obviously a tie, okay? Or toss up in that sense, right? Toss up, all right? So toss up would just be gray, and we would just simply leave it blank. So in this election, according to this map that I currently have, we have 96 electoral votes as being toss up, and that is the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. These 7 states have been on the minds, 7 states have been on the minds of many electoral predictors, as well as Nebraska's second congressional district and Maine's at-large vote. Maine at-large has not been focused on as much. Most likely will vote for Kamala Harris in the tilt to lean margin. I'm going to go ahead and put this state in the lean margin for now. So for now, I'm going to put this state in the lean margin. But Nebraska's second congressional district as well. Now, before when Biden was in the race, you could very much argue that Donald Trump would end up winning the states of Minnesota and the states of Virginia, possibly taking the state of New Hampshire. And some people were even saying that he could take New Mexico. But now that Kamala Harris is in the race, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin are definitely some of the only states that Donald Trump has a good shot of winning. You could also see him winning the state of Virginia potentially. I don't think he can win Minnesota due to the fact that Tim Walz obviously is the governor in that state. And regardless of what you say about Tim Walz, I don't think he's going to lose the state of Minnesota. I think that's a state that's, I think, locked in for the Democrats. It's going to probably be voting for the Democrats. I believe since the 1976, before the 1970s even. I believe 1972 maybe was the last time it voted Republican, somewhere 1968 or somewhere around that. This was the only state in the 1984 election which voted for Walter Mondale over Ronald Reagan. And I think that's a very good state for the Democrats to make sure that they keep on taking, even if it is going more towards a little bit shifting towards the right. So now we have several of the states here listed out. Let's take a look at the current polls in the RCP aggregate, and then I'm going to obviously now I don't just to be very clear, I don't rely entirely off of polling data in terms of the raw vote samples. For example, if Trump's ahead by 1.5% in the state of Georgia, I'm not going to give him the state of Georgia just because of the fact that he's ahead by 1.4%. The same thing goes, for instance, for let's say the state of Wisconsin, for instance. Just because Kamala Harris is ahead by 0.8% does not necessarily mean that I'm going to give it to Kamala Harris. I will use the polls kind of as a reason, one of the reasons for why I might give a state for one of the candidates, but it is not the sole determining factor. If you use that logic, then Joe Biden would win the 2020 election by a landslide if you were to use that logic in 2020. You just shouldn't use that logic because that logic would have failed you in 2016. It would have failed you in 2020. Okay, so taking a look at this, in the state of Wisconsin, currently we have Kamala Harris ahead by 0.8%. Now, the question is, which polls have her ahead? Well, you have New York Times Siena, which is not very accurate. You have the Marquette poll, which shows Kamala Harris ahead. Bloomberg polls, which are definitely not accurate. You have a Marist poll, okay, and you have a Cook Political Report poll, and then you have a Marquette poll. Now, the poll which shows Donald Trump ahead is an Atlas Intel poll. Now, Atlas Intel polls are very accurate. In fact, if you look at their history of how accurate they are, in almost every single election that they've predicted the winner, they have almost always been accurate in almost every single one of those elections. So, Atlas Intel polls are definitely accurate, and they do show Donald Trump ahead, but that is only one poll. So, here's my other reason for why Donald Trump would win the state of Wisconsin. If you take a look at the 2020 election in the state of Wisconsin, let me take a look at this. So, in the 2020 electoral map here, if you take a look at the state, oh, sorry, this is the Senate. Let me go back here to the general election and then RCP electoral map. All right, good. So RCP electoral map. If you take a look at this RCP electoral map in the state of Wisconsin, we can see that in the lead up to the election, Joe Biden was ahead by 6.7% in the lead up to the election in the average of polls. Now, we are obviously leading up to the election at this particular point. You can see that at this point in the 2020 election cycle, Joe Biden was beating Donald Trump in the polls by around, let me go back, October 8th, by around 5.5%. Yet Joe Biden in the 2020 election results only ended up winning the state of Wisconsin by around 0.6%. So it overestimated Joe Biden by around 5 to 6 percentage points. Even if you take a look at 2016, you can see the 2016 polling data. Hillary Clinton was leading in the polls by around 6.5%. In the actual 2020 election, Donald Trump ended up winning that state by 0.7%. So in both the 2016 and 2020 elections, it overestimated Donald Trump, overestimated the Democrats by around 5 to 6 percentage points, even up to 7 percentage points. So now Kamala Harris is only in by 0.8%. A very small margin of error for the Republicans could easily make them win this state. Even a 1 or 2% margin of error could easily make them win this state. Even if you take a look at the Senate midterm elections, which I believe Republicans in the 2024 general election will overperform the Senate elections. If you take a look at the polling data right now, Donald Trump is outperforming Senate Republicans in almost every single one of the states. If you take a look at the state of Montana, Ohio, two states which are definitely going to vote for Donald Trump, the Senate Republicans in that state are very much struggling to, oust a Republican, a Democrat incumbent in those states. For example, in Montana, you have Tim, I believe Sheehy, going against John Tester, right? Who is an establishment Democrat in the state of Montana. And obviously, the state of Montana is going to vote for Donald Trump in the safe margin. You see, Donald Trump is overperforming Tim Sheehy in those polls. Even in Ohio, the same thing is going on. And you can see that Donald Trump definitely overperformed Senate elections. Also, one of the other reasons is because when Donald Trump was on the ballot in both 2020 and 2016, Republicans overperformed. So, for instance, in 2020, Republicans overperformed in the House of Representatives. In 2016, they overperformed in the Senate election as well. So you can see that in both 2016 and 2020, the Republicans overperformed. Now in 2022, Donald Trump was not on the ballot. So he was not on the ballot, and that's one of the reasons why I believe that the Republicans went down. If you look back at the 2020 midterm elections, you can see that Republicans overperformed in the House. And one of the reasons why was because if Donald Trump was on the ballot, the voters came out and they voted. Even if you take a look at all the elections, in the 2020 Senate elections, Donald Trump overperformed almost every single Senate Republican in 2020. Even I believe in 2016, he overperformed a lot of them. So as you can see, a lot of the time, Donald Trump overperforms Republicans. And regardless of what people say, Donald Trump actually is a very good candidate for the GOP because a lot of establishment Republicans are losing in these states. If Ron DeSantis was the nominee at this point, I don't think that he would have been able to have this good of a shot at winning the presidency compared to Donald Trump. So I do believe that Donald Trump will win the state of Wisconsin. Also, if you take a look at the state of Michigan, now Michigan is a very, very close election. Michigan is a state which Kamala Harris is led by 0.7%. In the most recent Allison poll, Donald Trump is led by 4%. Also, if you apply previous margin of error to these particular polls, Donald Trump would still end up winning. So I do believe that Donald Trump will win this particular state. So that is for the state. You do see the polling that it is starting to narrow up a little bit. At one point, Kamala Harris was led by 2.2%. At one point, the margins are going down for her. If the polls do continue to go in this direction leading up to the election, then I do believe Donald Trump will win the election definitely because of the fact that he is ahead in several of these states. So the state of Michigan going to the former president, as well as the state of Pennsylvania will go to the former president. Currently, they are tied in these in this race, but I do believe that he's going to win this state by a very narrow margin. But he's going to win this state. Recent Allison poll shows him ahead by 3%. I do believe the polling data is slightly underestimating him by around 1 or 2%. So I do believe that he's going to end up winning the state of Pennsylvania as well. And then let's move on to the state of Nevada. The state of Nevada will vote for Kamala Harris. Now, I'm not using polling data entirely because Kamala Harris is only ahead by 1.1% in the state of Nevada. That being said, if you take a look at the Allison poll here, you do see Kamala Harris is leading by 3%. You could make the argument for Kamala Harris losing the state of Nevada. One of the arguments that people have made, I've talked to some people about this, and one of the arguments that people have made for Donald Trump winning the state of Nevada is the fact that Senate Republicans in the 2022 midterm elections didn't really lose by as big of a margin. But I do believe that Kamala Harris will win the state of Nevada as of right now. Nevada polling, generally speaking, does tend to overestimate Republicans. If you go back to the 2016 election, you can see that Clinton, in the lead up to the election, was behind by 0.8%. She ended up winning in the actual election by 2.4%. If you go back to the 2020 electoral map, the RCB polling data was spot on. Yet now it does show Kamala Harris by 1.1%. So I do believe that Kamala Harris will win this particular state. With regard to the state of Arizona, Arizona is a border state. I do believe that it will vote for the former president. I have had Arizona in the Kamala Harris in the Donald Trump column for quite some time, actually. You do see that Donald Trump's ahead by 1.4% in the polls. In the majority of polls, he is ahead. If you apply 2020 margin of error to these particular polls, Donald Trump will end up winning in the state of Arizona. As well as the state of Georgia, I don't think he's going to win by a small margin in the state of Georgia. He's currently ahead in the polls by 1.5%. In the most recent Quinnipiac poll, he's ahead by 5%. Quinnipiac is not that accurate either, but the Atlas Intel poll does show him ahead by 1%. So you do see that as well. North Carolina, Donald Trump will end up winning as well. Particularly the polling data right now, Donald Trump is ahead by a very, very small margin in this particular state, 0.6%, but he will end up winning in that particular state. So that is for the electoral map as of right now. Nebraska's second congressional district will be left as being tossed up for now. I do want to do some more research into that particular district. Take a look at some polling data. Take a look at the 2022 midterm elections. I do believe the Republicans in the 2022 midterm elections did actually end up winning in this congressional district. I believe in the 2022 midterms, but I'm not entirely sure of that. I'll make sure to check that out after this video. But if you like this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and like the video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down below as we are approaching 500 subscribers, and I'll see you in the next video.